My wife casually admitted she had been with my closest friend, as if she were commenting on the weather. I didn't shout or throw anything. Instead, I took an action that would completely ruin both of them. You see, I run a trucking business and keep meticulous records. What I uncovered went far beyond a simple affair. It was deliberate psychological manipulation. This is how I made them both face the consequences. My name is Felix Patterson. I'm 61 years old. Until 3 months ago, I thought I had everything under control. I started Patterson Logistics from nothing but an old Ford truck back in 1995. Nearly 3 decades later, I own 47 trucks and employ 63 drivers across 3 states. I married Michelle when I was 43. At the time, she worked as a dental hygienist, efficient, cheerful, and always radiant. I was captivated from the very beginning. She had a talent for making anyone feel like the most important person in the room. That fateful evening began like any typical Tuesday. I was in my home office when Michelle appeared at the doorway. "Felix, we need to talk," she said, taking a seat across from me. I focused entirely on her. "What's going on, darling?" She shrugged as if mentioning the weather. "I slept with Reed, but don't make a big deal of it." It didn't mean anything. Reed Holbrook, my best friend of 32 years, the man who stood beside me at my wedding. The air felt heavy. I didn't yell or throw anything. I simply rose and walked to the window. "How long?" I asked. "Does it even matter?" she replied. "You're overreacting, Felix. It just happened. We were drunk after Belinda's birthday party last month." She scrolled on her phone as if we were planning dinner. That's when it struck me. This wasn't a confession, it was a declaration. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my truck keys. "Don't do this," Michelle called after me. "It's not a big deal. People make mistakes." I drove to my downtown office. The building was empty, the only sound the hum of computers. I sat at my desk and accessed the security system I'd installed months earlier for documentation. Every detail was there: dates, timestamps, license plates, the BMW in my driveway while I was supposedly elsewhere, even doorbell audio capturing them thinking no one was watching. I printed it all: screenshots, message logs, credit card statements showing hotel charges on shopping days. The printer worked for 20 minutes straight. By 10 p.m., I had a thick stack of evidence. Back at home, I placed the printed proof under her windshield wiper, then packed a bag and drove to my cabin in Branson. My phone buzzed around midnight, but I had already turned it off. The next day would bring consequences. That night was just for planning my next steps after the foundation of my life had crumbled. And Felix, that prenuptial agreement you pushed for 18 years ago is proving to be a wise decision. After hanging up, I walked down to the small dock by the pond. The surface was smooth as glass, mirroring the pale morning sky. I thought about the man who had built this retreat, the one who trusted his wife implicitly and never questioned late nights at the office or unexplained shopping trips. That man felt like a stranger now. The new version of Felix Patterson was someone I was only beginning to understand. And truth be told, I already liked him better. He didn't excuse others' betrayals or pretend that loyalty was optional in a marriage. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring out and listened to the voicemail. Belinda Holbrook's shaky voice came through. "Felix, it's Belinda. Reed told me what happened. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please, call me. There are things you need to know." I deleted the message and powered off the phone. Whatever she had to say could wait. Today wasn't about the past. It was about what came next. Fletcher Grimm's office hadn't changed in 2 decades. Same worn leather chairs, the old mahogany desk scarred by years of tense negotiations, and the familiar scent of coffee mixed with Old Spice. Fletcher himself looked like he'd been carved from Missouri granite, 67, silver-haired, and as fierce as ever when defending a client. "Sit down, Felix. We need to talk about your father," he said, pouring 2 cups of black coffee. That stopped me cold. "My father? Fletcher, he's been gone for 15 years. "Your biological father," Fletcher corrected. "The one your mother never mentioned." He slid a manila folder across the desk. "Reed Holbrook's father was a traveling salesman who made his rounds through 3 counties. Your mother was one of his regular stops, if you catch my drift." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were birth records, DNA test results, and investigator reports going back 6 months. The evidence was undeniable. Reed Holbrook was my half-brother. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. Since you hired me to write that prenup 18 years ago, Fletcher said. I ran checks on everyone close to you, including Reed. Found inconsistencies, started digging. Your mother kept that secret to her grave, but records don't lie. I studied a photo of Reed's father, my father. The same jawline, the same hands, even the same crooked smile I saw in the mirror each morning. Does Reed know? Not unless he's done his own DNA tests, Fletcher replied. But here's the twist. Michelle found out 3 months ago. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. How? One of those ancestry sites, Fletcher said. She submitted your DNA without telling you. Said it was for a family tree surprise. When the results showed Reed as a close relative, she figured it out. The room spun. Michelle hadn't just slept with my best friend. She'd done it knowing he was my brother. This wasn't weakness. It was cruelty, planned and deliberate. There's more, Fletcher said. Your neighbor, Eunice Kowalski, has been keeping logs on the neighborhood for 40 years. Turns out she saw things Reed and Michelle didn't think anyone noticed. He handed me a notebook filled with meticulous handwriting, dates, times, license plates, even sketches. Eunice had documented everything from the mailman's schedule to garbage pickups. Buried among her notes were months of proof about Reed's visits. She came to me yesterday, Fletcher added. Said she always knew something was off about those afternoon visits when you were gone. She's willing to testify. I closed the notebook and leaned back in my chair. Fletcher, I want to destroy them both. Legally, completely, permanently. That's what I was hoping you'd say, Fletcher grinned. Because with what we've got, this isn't just divorce. It's fraud, conspiracy, and psychological abuse. Michelle knew exactly what she was doing when she went after your half-brother. What's the plan? I asked. Step 1. We file for divorce citing adultery and emotional distress. Step 2. We freeze all joint assets pending investigation into financial fraud. Step 3. We hit Reed with a civil suit for alienation of affection, still valid under Missouri law. He pulled a thick document from his briefcase. And Step 4. We make sure everyone in 3 counties knows exactly who they are. 3 days later, I was splitting firewood behind the cabin when a silver Honda Civic rolled up my gravel driveway. A confident teenage girl stepped out, designer jeans hugging her frame, despite barely being old enough to drive. Scarlett Holbrook, Reed's 17-year-old daughter, strode toward me as if she owned the place. Mr. Patterson, I'm Scarlett. We need to have a serious talk, she said, skipping any formality. I set the axe down and wiped my hands on a rag. Scarlett, what brings you all the way out here? My dad's an idiot, and your wife's a homewrecker, but I'm not here to defend either of them. She sat on my porch steps without asking. I'm here to make a deal. This kid had more backbone than most men I knew. I'm listening. I've been recording my dad's calls for 6 months. Not out of nosiness, but because he promised to pay for my college while spending money on hotels and jewelry for your wife instead. She showed me her phone. I've got it all, reservations, receipts, even recordings of him talking about leaving our spouses. Clever girl. Smarter than her father, apparently. What kind of deal? I asked. I want my college fund back. Dad wasted $18,000 of my money on his midlife crisis. You helped me get it through the courts, and I'll testify to everything I've seen and heard. I studied her face. No tears, no dramatics, just cold calculation. She reminded me of myself at that age. Practical, focused, unwilling to let others' stupidity derail her future. Scarlett, what you're describing is serious. Your father could face criminal charges for misusing your college fund. Good. Maybe he should have thought of that before destroying our family for a married woman. She straightened her jacket. Mr. Patterson, my dad ruined both our families, but I'm not going down with him. I respected that. I admired it. What about your mother? She knows he's been cheating, but not about the money yet. I thought we could coordinate for maximum impact. Fletcher was right. This was no longer just divorce. It was about justice, accountability, and making the right people pay. Scarlett, you've got a deal, but your mother needs to know every step. She deserves to make her own choices. Already planned on it, Mr. Patterson. By the end, the whole town will know who Reed Holbrook really is. As she drove off, I realized the best allies sometimes come from unexpected places, and children can be wiser than adults. I was cleaning my rifle on the porch when Michelle's white Mercedes tore up the gravel driveway like she was fleeing demons. She barely parked before jumping out, her designer heels hopelessly wrong for the terrain. Reed's BMW followed cautiously. They likely felt safer together. "Felix, we need to talk," Rel yelled, striding toward the porch in her expensive business suit. I continued cleaning the rifle, methodical and calm. "Nothing's stopping you from talking, Michelle. I'm right here. You can't disappear and file these ridiculous lawsuits." She waved a manila envelope. "Fletcher Grimm claims I committed fraud. This is insane." Reed lingered by his car, clearly uncomfortable. "Smart man. Fraud is a strong word," I said finally, looking up. "But when a woman discovers her husband and lover are half-brothers, and then uses that knowledge to maximize the emotional impact of her affair, what would you call that?" Her face drained of color. "How did you find out about the DNA test I ran without your permission?" "Fletcher is thorough. He also traces digital footprints very well." I set down the rifle. "You knew exactly what you were doing, Rel. This wasn't accidental. It was calculated psychological warfare." Reed finally spoke. "Felix, I swear I didn't know we were related." "I believe you, Reed. You're foolish, but not evil." I pointed at Michelle. She knew precisely which button to push to hurt me most. "That's not true." Rel's voice rose. "I made a mistake. Affairs happen all the time. People don't investigate their husband's DNA to ensure maximum emotional damage," I said, stepping down from the porch. "Dolores knows, by the way," I added. Rel went pale. "My mother? You didn't have to call her. Eunice Kowalski did. She's been documenting Reed's visits for months, watching the neighborhood like a hawk for 40 years. She knows when men are late and when married men sneak around with other women." Reed looked sick. "Felix, we can fix this. We're family. Family doesn't sleep with each other's spouses, and family doesn't steal from their own daughters to pay for hotel rooms." I smiled as Reed's face went pale. "Yeah, Scarlett told me everything. How you been dipping into her college fund to fund your affair with my wife. Real classy, Reed. You're going to ruin us both over one mistake." Rel's eyes filled with tears. "One mistake?" I laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. "Rel, this has been planned for months. The DNA test, the affair, even the way you confessed. You wanted to watch me break. Problem is, you underestimated the man you married." I walked back toward the cabin. "Fletcher will contact you regarding the settlement conference. Bring your checkbooks." As they drove away, I realized something important. They had expected the old Felix, the one who would negotiate, compromise, and try to save everyone's feelings. They met someone else entirely, someone who understood respect is earned, not given. 3 days later, at 6 a.m., Dolores Whitman called. Rel's mother had been ringing every hour since Eunice's revelation, and I finally answered. "Felix Patterson, explain why my daughter is crying hysterically in my guest bedroom," Dolores demanded. "Good morning to you too, Dolores. How much did Eunice tell you?" "Everything. That my daughter has been involved with Reed Holbrook for over a year, and that you've known about it for months without saying anything. What kind of man hires lawyers instead of talking to his wife?" I poured my coffee slowly. "The kind of man whose wife deliberately chose his half-brother as her affair partner after investigating family history to maximize emotional harm." Silence. Then quietly, "Half-brother? DNA doesn't lie, Loris." "Rel submitted my DNA to an ancestry site 3 months ago. Discovered Reed and I share a father, then escalated the affair. This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated psychological warfare." "That can't be true. Michelle wouldn't." "Michelle would, and she did. Fletcher has all the documentation, even the congratulatory email she sent herself upon learning the family connection." More silence. Dolores, manipulative, protective, but not foolish, was clearly connecting the dots. "Even if that's true, surely you can work through this. Marriage requires forgiveness," she said. "Marriage requires honesty, loyalty, and basic decency. Your daughter demonstrated none of these. She made choices, multiple choices over months, and now she faces the consequences." I set down my coffee. "Dolores, I respected you for 18 years, treated you like family, included you in holidays, listened to your advice. But if you think I'll let your daughter ruin my life without repercussions, you don't know me. What do you want, Felix? Money? Is this about the prenup? This is about justice. Your daughter must learn actions have consequences. She can't betray and manipulate people who love her without paying a price. She's my baby, Felix. She's all I have left. For a moment, I hesitated. Dolores was 74, a widow who had poured everything into her daughter. Then I remembered Rel's shrug, her casual dismissal of 18 years of marriage, her calculated cruelty in choosing Reed. Dolores, I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, but your daughter made adult choices. Now she faces adult consequences. What if she promises to stop seeing Reed? Counseling? Too late. Papers are filed. Evidence is documented. And frankly, I don't want to be married to someone capable of premeditated cruelty. I hung up before she could reply. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Dolores. I love my daughter, but what she did to you was unforgivable. I'm sorry, Felix. You deserve better. Sometimes the truth reveals itself to everyone, even those who don't want to see it. Fletcher's office felt like a war room. Documents covered every surface. Bank statements, property deeds, business records, stacks of legal motions thick enough to stop a bullet. Across the table sat Bernard Kowalski, Rel's high-priced attorney from Kansas City, looking uncomfortable. Gentlemen, let's cut through the theatrics. Kowalski began, adjusting his suit. My client is willing to accept a modest settlement to avoid lengthy litigation. Fletcher laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Bernie, your client stole $18,000 from her husband's business account to fund her affair with his half-brother. Modest settlement isn't on the table. The money came from joint marital assets, from Patterson Logistics operating accounts. I interrupted. An account she had no legal right to touch was drained to pay for things that directly violated our prenup. Kowalski shifted his papers, uneasy. Mr. Patterson, surely ruining your wife's financial future won't accomplish anything constructive. Constructive? I leaned forward. Bernie, your client dug into my family history, found out I had a half-brother, and then deliberately targeted him for an affair to inflict maximum emotional damage. That isn't adultery, it's psychological warfare. Fletcher pushed a heavy folder across the table. DNA reports, ancestry site records, emails showing Mrs. Patterson's excited reaction when she learned about the family link. She knew exactly what she was doing. Kowalski flipped through the documents, his face drained. This is extensive. It gets worse, Fletcher said. Reed Holbrook has been stealing from his daughter's college fund to pay for hotels and jewelry. Scarlett Holbrook is ready to testify about $18,000 taken from her education account. My client isn't responsible for Mr. Holbrook's crimes, Kowalski protested. Your client helped him spend that money. Hotel receipts show them together, credit card statements show shared charges. I produced another file. More than that, she encouraged him to take more. We have voice recordings of her saying Scarlett didn't need college anyway. Kowalski went still, setting his pen down. What are you demanding? Forfeiture of spousal rights under the prenup, Fletcher said. No alimony, no division of property, no retirement benefits, plus restitution for the stolen funds and legal fees. That's unreasonable, Kowalski objected. What's unreasonable, I said, is a woman who systematically destroyed her marriage for sport. I stood. Rel keeps her personal items in the car. Everything else stays with me. She'll be financially ruined, and she should have thought of that before she waged psychological warfare against her husband. Kowalski gathered his papers. I'll need to discuss this with Mrs. Patterson. Do that, I replied. But know this, the offer expires in 48 hours. After that, we add criminal fraud charges to the civil suits. They left. Fletcher poured 2 bourbons. Think he'll take the deal? Doesn't matter, I said. We've got enough evidence to bury her either way. I lifted my glass. To justice, long overdue. The knock on my cabin door came at 7 the next morning. Reed stood on the porch looking 10 years older. Hair messed, clothes wrinkled, hands shaking as he clutched a manila envelope. Felix, please, we need to talk, he whispered. I let him in and habitually poured 2 cups of coffee. What's in the envelope, Reed? I asked. A signed confession. Everything. The affair, the money I took from Scarlett's college fund, even times I used your business contacts to benefit my clients. He set the envelope on my table like it weighed 100 pounds. I'm done fighting. I opened it and read his handwritten statement. Detailed, thorough, and utterly damning. Why now? I asked. Because Scarlett won't speak to me. Because Belinda filed for divorce yesterday. Because my boss found out about the embezzlement and fired me. He slumped. Because I finally realized what I'd become. A pathetic middle-aged man who ruined everything good in his life for a woman who never cared for anyone but herself. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Felix, Rel doesn't love me. She never did. She used me to hurt you, and I was too stupid to see it. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been real remorse. You stole from your own daughter, I said. I know. God help me, I know. Scarlett's college fund, Belinda and I saved for 15 years. I spent it on hotels and jewelry for a woman who laughed at both of us. He looked down. What do you want from me? Nothing, I replied. You don't deserve anything from me. Reed stood, leaving the confession on the table. I wanted you to know I understand what I did, and I want to give you everything you need to make sure she pays for what she's done. He stepped toward the door, then paused. Felix, for what it's worth, I'm sorry, not just for the affair, but for being too blind to see who she really is. You deserve better friends than me. After he left, I stayed at the kitchen table, reading his confession, 23 pages of detailed admissions that would guarantee Rel's total financial ruin. Reed had recorded everything, dates, sums, even conversations where Rel encouraged him to take more from Scarlett's fund. My phone rang. Fletcher's number flashed. Felix, you won't believe this. Michelle just stormed into my office demanding to know why Reed won't answer her calls. He just left, brought me a full confession. A confession? I asked. Yes. With Reed's testimony, we can prove criminal conspiracy. She's not just losing the divorce. She could face jail. I looked out at the calm Missouri countryside. Fletcher, sometimes justice takes its time, but when it arrives, it doesn't mess around. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people destroy themselves. The Springfield courthouse was alive with activity as our case concluded. Judge Margaret Harrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, had reviewed all the evidence over 3 days of testimony. Michelle sat with Bernard Kowalski, looking pale and defeated. The confident woman who shrugged off her affair 6 months ago was gone. Mr. Patterson, Judge Harrison began. This court has reviewed extensive evidence of marital fraud, financial theft, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The defendant's actions show a deliberate pattern of psychological warfare against her spouse. Fletcher squeezed my shoulder. We had presented everything, the DNA evidence, Rel's deliberate targeting of Reed, the stolen funds, even recordings where she encouraged Reed to take more from Scarlett's college account. Judge Harrison continued. The defendant's use of ancestry research to identify and target the plaintiff's half-brother shows premeditation beyond simple adultery. Kowalski tried a final objection, but the judge cut him off. This court enforces the prenuptial agreement in full. The gavel struck like thunder. Rel lost all spousal rights, owed restitution for the stolen money, and faced criminal charges for financial fraud. Reed's confession sealed her fate entirely. Outside, Scarlett Holbrook waited by my truck. At 17, she had shown more integrity than most adults I knew. Mr. Patterson, thank you. The college fund money Dad stole, I'm getting every penny back, plus interest. You earned it, Scarlett. Standing up to your father took courage. Blood doesn't make family, loyalty does. She handed me a graduation invitation. Full scholarship to Missouri State, business major. Maybe someday I'll run a company as honestly as you do. As she drove off, I felt something I hadn't in months. Genuine pride, not in destroying Rel and Reed, but in helping a good kid get justice. Fletcher joined me by the truck. So what's next, Felix? Back to running my business, building things instead of tearing them down. I looked at the courthouse, where my marriage had officially ended. I learned something important. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And when they try to destroy you, make sure they know the difference between a victim and an adversary. 1 year later, I stood on the porch of my cabin, watching the sunrise paint the Missouri hills gold. Fletcher had called the night before. Rel's criminal trial ended with a guilty verdict, 2 years in state prison for fraud, plus 5 years probation. Reed had testified against her to reduce his sentence. My phone buzzed with a text from Dolores. Felix, justice was served. I'm sorry it took so long to see who my daughter really was. You deserve better. I had forgiven her months ago. Sometimes good people raise bad children despite their best efforts. Rel had chosen truth over loyalty, showing courage most people lack. Tires on gravel announced my morning visitor. Sarah Mitchell stepped out of her blue Honda, holding 2 coffees and wearing the smile that had brightened my days for the past 8 months. She was a 54-year-old librarian in Branson, divorced, with grown children and a laugh that could chase away any shadow. "Morning, handsome," Sarah said, settling beside me on the porch swing I'd built last month. "Morning, beautiful. How was the book club last night?" Heated discussion. Whether the heroine should forgive her cheating husband. She handed me my coffee. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. Speaking from experience, watching a good man rebuild after someone tried to destroy him. She leaned against me. "Felix, you never told me what finally convinced you to start dating again." I thought for a moment, watching a hawk circle overhead. Rel's betrayal revealed her character, not mine. When someone shows you who they are, you can let it destroy your faith in people, or use it to value those worth trusting. And which camp do I fall into? "Sarah Mitchell, you're proof good people exist." I kissed the top of her head. "Plus, you read the fine print before signing anything." We sat in peaceful silence as the day began. No desperate calls, no drama, just calm. Patterson Logistics thrived. Scarlett Holbrook worked part-time in my office, learning business while finishing high school. Onionist Kowalski visited weekly with cookies and updates. Even Reed's wife, Belinda, found happiness with a loyal man. I'd learned the best revenge isn't destruction. It's living well, building instead of tearing down, choosing people who choose you back. The sun rose, burning off the morning mist. Somewhere in Jefferson City, Rel was learning that actions have consequences. Here on my porch, with Sarah beside me and a future full of possibilities that felt like someone else's story. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise.